Copyright is serious, but it shouldn't be scary. So I'm going to be diving into what is copyright, how can you ensure that you are not violating any laws, and how you can make sure your work on Teachers Pay Teachers is protected. So let's start with the basics. What the heck is copyright? Very simply, it just protects your work from other people copying it and other people claiming it's their work. It protects the authorship of works. So what can be copyrighted? Well, literary works like published works, books, poems, dramatic works like plays, music, art, computer programs, architecture, video games, sound recordings, and your educational resources that you are creating to put on Teachers Pay Teachers. Now, there are certain things that can be copyrighted, like what I just talked about. There are also certain things that cannot be copyrighted, like ideas. Other things that aren't necessarily copyrightable are things like the title of a book, or short phrases, or the basic idea of a story, or a list of ingredients for a recipe, or like a standard calendar design. So when you are creating things for Teachers Pay Teachers, you want to make sure that you put your own personal flair, your own branding, your own kind of jazz it up with what you know works as the expert in the classroom. That way it stands out and it can be copyrighted, as opposed to just putting a calendar up that cannot be copyrighted. Okay. Now, if you have like a group of calendars that are related to a certain curriculum and certain standards, and you have mapped out things, then yes, that can be copyrighted. Now, copyright is different than trademarks. So let's just touch on trademarks for a second. Trademarks are basically a protected legal thing that is a little bit different than copyrights, because trademarks only apply to certain things like logos or brand names, slogans, even smells can technically be trademarked, which I don't completely understand. But trademarks are really not something that you necessarily need to worry about for your TPT store. I get asked a lot, should I trademark the name of my TPT store? I probably wouldn't, unless you get really huge and you want your brand name to be distinct and like no one else can use your brand name. Trademarking is expensive. I would highly recommend, if you are going to trademark something, to go through a lawyer, and it can be anywhere from $3,000 to up to $7,000 in order to do that the right way. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about you trademarking something, but you don't want to use things that are already trademarked. Things that are already trademarked are just some common ones that I see. Disney, don't use anything related to Disney. Emojis, Legos, Marvel, Harry Potter. It's typically characters in a book or brand names like Disney. Logos can't be used. You can easily look up things to see if they're trademarked or not by going to the United States trademark website. Just Google that and you can search to see if things are trademarked or not. Now, if you are in a different country, there are really not any copyright laws that are international. So every country kind of has their own laws. So just kind of be aware of that. I'm only going to be talking about US laws here because that is where I am and where I create. I would say that most countries are probably similar if you're speaking English, but just look up the laws for your own country. Okay, so that's kind of what copyright is and what trademarks are. So let's talk about things that you may want to use in your Teachers Pay Teachers resource that are copyrighted, but you still may be able to use pieces of them. So the number one question I get is books. Can I use parts of books in my resource? Can I use the title? Can I use the cover? Can I use quotes from the book? The unfortunate news is there are no clear set laws around this. There are things called, I know you've heard of this, fair use laws. There are books that are in the public domain, but it's something that you would need to look up on an individual book basis. So the public domain is something that you can usually easily look up to see if books are in the public domain. It's usually books that are really old. So like every year it's a certain cutoff year, like 1930 and before, those would be in the public domain. But there are also books that are published after that that are in the public domain. So you would need to look that up on a book by book basis. But if you are talking about books that are not in the public domain and you want to use what's called the fair use laws, well, even those are a gray area. And I know because I've asked a lawyer and she basically said there is no black and white. You need to reach out to a publisher, get verbal communication with them about what they allow and what they don't allow. So if you are planning to use a book in your Teachers Pay Teachers, resource, then reach out to the publisher and ask them what can be used and what cannot be used. That is your best bet. And then save that communication, print it out so that if anything were to ever happen, you have that communication saved. Now, the next question I get is, what about pictures? Like actual pictures, maybe historical figures, or maybe you just need pictures for other purposes. Pictures are also by an individual picture by picture basis, and you would need to see, can the picture be used for commercial use? Now, I do have some websites here that have pictures for commercial use, but not necessarily people. But if you need some type of picture for other purposes, then you can look at these websites: unsplash.com, pexels.com, and pixabay.com. You can always just click on them and look and see, can it be used for commercial use? It would usually say somewhere free for use under the Pixabay content license, and then you can look and see what their terms of use say. So just read the terms of use and be careful with pictures. Again, it's serious, but it shouldn't be scary. Just do the research. Don't just say, oh, this is too much work, I'm just going to throw this in my resource and see what happens. No, do your research and make sure that things can be used for commercial use. Even if you're looking like a picture up on Wikipedia of Martin Luther King Jr., you need to look and see, can that picture be used for commercial use? If not, can I find one for commercial use? Okay, now let's talk about fonts and clip art. So you're probably going to want to use some fonts and clip art inside of your resources for Teachers Pay Teachers. Again, make sure those are for commercial use. There are some free fonts out there that are for commercial use, and if you find those, great. Same thing with fonts. I typically see that the best clip art and the best fonts are paid if you want to use them commercially, so in your resources to sell. So what I would do is I would take some of my TPT earnings and reinvest that back into my business. So here's a little tough love. If you want to take your Teachers Pay Teachers store seriously and treat it as a business, businesses require investments. So whether you're paying for training to learn how to really make sure your TPT store is doing well, or you're paying for fonts and clip art, you are going to have to make some investments, and that's okay because this is a business. So take some of your earnings, or if you don't have any earnings, put some money up front and invest, and then you will see the return on that investment, the ROI, and it's really going to make your resources stand out. So my favorite place to look for fonts and clip art is actually Teachers Pay Teachers, where you're listing your resources. Just search fonts and then just make sure in the terms of use that they are allowing you to use them for commercial use. Some font and clip art artists require you to buy an additional license, but a lot of them that I have found, they're just automatically for commercial use. Just make sure you're looking at their terms. Now, let's talk about registering your copyright. So protecting your own works. What I typically suggest people do is when they are making their worksheet activity or whatever, at the bottom right corner, you put your copyright, which is parentheses, capital C, close parentheses, and that'll make the copyright symbol in PowerPoint, and then your first and last name, comma, the year. If you look at the US copyright website, that is how they recommend you write your copyright. Not your store name, unless your store name is also your business registered name, like you've registered an LLC in that store name, then that would be okay, but otherwise you need to use your name and then comma, the year that it was created. Now, if you go back and make significant changes to that resource, then you can update with the year that you made those changes. That's fine. But you can put that on the bottom of every page, every activity, and that is telling people, hey, I am claiming authorship of this work. This is my work. And usually that is all you have to do. That's what I have personally seen. That's all you have to do in order to protect your work. And if someone copies your work, TPT is pretty good about taking care of that. So what you can do is, let's say that you see someone who has literally downloaded your works and they've put it up on their own store. Sometimes they don't even take the copyright off, which hello. But sometimes they can just white out your copyright. If that happens, you can send them a cease and desist letter. Just chat GPT that. Can you write me a cease and desist letter to this store name saying that they stole my stuff? And then keep that, document everything, and then tell TPT. And TPT is pretty good about dealing with that store, having them take down whatever they stole or copied from you. And then they'll also refund all of the earnings that they have earned from selling their stolen materials. I have never seen this happen, but If that wasn't enough, then what would need to happen is you would need to register your copyright. Now, you can register your copyright with the Copyright Office. And again, this is all United States stuff. If you're outside the United States, you would need to look up the laws for your country. But you can register your copyright. But I actually was talking to my lawyer friend, Brittany. We did a whole episode on keeping your business legally legit. I will make sure to post that link below so you can watch that video next. But she told me, and I had never heard this before, that if it were to come to like a court case and someone had copied your work and they wouldn't take it down and TPT wouldn't handle it and you wanted to take it to small claims court, then you would have to have your copyright registered before they stole your work in order for it to be a good case. So what does that mean? Here's my advice. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but my lawyer friend did agree with me. When you're registering your copyright, it's not like you can register it for all of your stuff, but you can register your copyright for like if you've made a whole curriculum or you've made this whole like pack of worksheets or pack of activities and it's selling really well and it's a big money maker and it's a higher ticket offer, maybe like $50 or more, like a bundle. Then you can register that bundle, register the copyright for that bundle and whatever that bundle is called. And if someone ever copied it and you needed to go to small claims court, then that copyright registration would help you win your case. Again, I have never heard of anyone having to go to small claims court for a Teachers Pay Teachers resource. So again, this is serious but not scary. But I see people a lot asking, do I need to register my copyright? I would only do that if you have like a curriculum or a big bundle that's selling a lot and that you want to make sure that you protect. All right. Personally, this is what I would personally do. I haven't registered my curriculums. I have 2 curriculums. I haven't registered them yet. I might. But honestly, like if someone just copied everything and put it up, I just wouldn't worry about it. I really wouldn't worry about it. I would not waste my time and energy because you can beat them and make sure they're not doing it and then someone else might do it. That's just my own personal opinion and that's not advice. That's just what I would do. So again, serious but not scary. So that's what you could do if someone were copying you. Now, I think the bigger question and what most people are worried about is what if I accidentally copy someone else or I violate someone else's copyright? Just first of all, make sure that when you create something, you're not using other people's resources to create yours. You are making sure that you have your own style, your own unique way of doing things. But there are some things that you just can't make different enough, like mazes. There's kind of a general layout that I see for mazes. I even offer a maze template in my program, the Resource Academy, where I train teachers how to make resources and sell them. You can check that out below. But there's only so many ways that you can make a maze. So just make sure that the problems that you're putting in the maze or the content, I say problems because I'm a math person, but the content that you're putting in the maze is your own. You're not copying it from a textbook. You didn't get it from another resource online. You are making sure that it's your own in your own unique order. And maybe your maze has similar problems to someone else's because it's something like 1-digit addition. And there's only so many different problems you can make for 1-digit addition, right? 3 plus 2 or 5 plus 3. But it's different enough because they're in a different order. And so you don't really need to worry about it. So the gist of what I'm saying here is if you are making sure that you're not just blatantly copying someone else, then you should be okay. Now, I have seen some sellers come after other sellers for copying their work and that seller hadn't ever even seen the person that was saying they were copying them. They hadn't even seen that store. It just so happened that they created resources that were similar. And in that case, you may have to kind of make a case for yourself to Teachers Pay Teachers. But typically I see the right person come out on top, that Teachers Pay Teachers will honor the person who said they didn't copy it and they can kind of prove maybe they posted that resource before that other person even posted it, or it's different enough. So I haven't seen TPT come after people and they lose when they weren't wrong, So I just want you to know that it's not scary. Just make sure that you're using common sense here, that you are doing your research, doing your due diligence, and that you are coming up with your own ideas, your own content. And if you follow those rules, you should be fine. Make sure you're not using trademarked characters like Disney, Harry Potter. That's probably the number one mistake I see is people throwing stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers with trademarked names. And you may say, well, I see people doing that all the time and they don't get in trouble. Well, they just haven't gotten caught yet. So don't think that just because someone else is doing it, that you can do it. Okay. So I hope that was super helpful. Again, just use common sense. It's serious, but it's not scary. Go check out the other video that I created with my friend Brittany Hertel, who is a lawyer who helps digital product creators. She can tell you more about like setting up your LLC and all of that jazz. And I'll see you guys next time.